Yes, and it's called the Grave Spotter. That one I'm very interested to see people's reactions to, even though I have many of them where I'm like, "Oh, I wonder what people think of this one." But the Grave Spotter, and that one just has, I'm not sure exactly what it is about the emotion that I have. I guess because it just gives me these creepy kind of, it's the one that I told you kind of had that Tales from the Crypt style, and right whenever I think about it, just because of that sensation that I get, and that's toward the beginning of the book where I get that vibe from, and then it continues from there. It's just nostalgic. It just makes me think of that was a show that was popular, that was on when I was a kid. So it just gives me this nostalgia and this excitement for that, and just kind of that 90s horror kind of I guess sensation. So that's the one that I probably am really excited for people to tell me, "Oh, I just started this one," and I'm like, "Oh boy, all right, you got to tell me when you're done." So
everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter author podcast. You get to meet great authors. This author reached out to me, and not only am I excited to talk about this author and his journey and his books and everything that he's up to, he also kind of slipped in that he listens to the show. And I'm like, well, that made me super happy. And I did a little dance, not on camera, no proof, but I did a little dance. Been really happy that someone who listens to the show reached out, and they're an author. And I'm excited to have Chris here on the podcast. Chris, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. A listener turned guest. This is so cool. Welcome.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. It's awesome. Yeah. It's a very weird and nerve-wracking feeling to go from being a listener to being on there, and you're like, "Whoa, maybe I'm making it if I'm actually on the podcast that I listen to."
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, to talk to me personally, the bar is a little low, but I'm so excited to have time with you, Chris. It's really exciting to meet you, and we've had a chance to do like a little pre-chat together, so we know a little bit about each other. But we're going to get into it today and talk about your journey. I don't get the opportunity to do this very often, Chris. So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions about the show, because when somebody puts their hand up and say, "I listen to your show," my immediate thing is, how did you originally find the podcast? Like, did you find it on Apple or Spotify, or did somebody tell you about the show? Because I want to do whatever you say and do more of it.
Okay.
Do you recollect, like, how did you actually find Living the Next Chapter originally?
Yes. So, of course, I'm a writer, but I'm also an interested reader. So that being the case, I listen to a lot of reading and writing related podcasts. So I did find it on Apple Podcasts, and I was specifically searching for things of reading and writing related podcasts. And I came about you that way. And actually, when I was digging into different podcasts, part of it was, as an author, I like to hear what other authors have to say about their books. Sometimes you get your podcasts where it's like Book Riot and like the book review and things, and they give review of books, and it's like, that's great. I'm always looking for my next read. But I also like to hear the stories of authors as an aspiring one. It helps ground, you as a person, because you get the imposter syndrome, and you're like, can I do it? Can I not do it? And hearing everyone's stories, and then some of their inspirations is quite inspiring itself. So for me, I went to Apple Podcasts. I found a couple of different podcasts that are author related, where they interview authors, and one of those podcasts was yours. And that's how I came about it. And it was really just through Apple Podcast search, and you came up relatively quickly. It wasn't like a deep dive that I had to do. So, I came across it and I enjoyed listening to it. I think you have great conversations with authors, so I kept listening, and that's how it came about. And then reaching out to you was, I had a book getting ready, and I'm like, well, let's see if I have a shot. And that's when I reached out to you. So,
well, I'm honored to have time with you. So, to have you on the show is a win for me. So that's kind of my approach to all this. Yeah. And I started this show to do exactly what you said. I wanted to encourage authors that if you feel alone, you feel like you don't know what you're doing, and if you could have, the reason why I do this at the beginning with you and with my guests is I want to honor the authors that come to each episode.
Hmm.
Even if the book we're talking about might not be relatable for you as a reader and an author, the stories we tell and the questions we talk about at the beginning with our guests are author focused. So the authors can come listen to the beginning and then you're free to go. If it's a children's book and you're a business person, you might not want to stick around for the children's book. But there's something in there, hopefully a nugget that you can apply to your journey as an author and use that to kind of get you going. So now you not just you get out of the seat of the listener, you get into the seat of the guest. So I'm going to do this with you. For the authors that are listening to the show,
Yeah.
they're here, Chris. They just want to, just like you, they want to get inspiration. They want to find their path as an author. They're still learning. I always kind of equate it to a marathon. You've crossed the finish line. You have done more than they have. They bought a pair of shoes. They're brand new, and you're done. Right? You've done this. So you've learned something. You've had to learn something in the process.
Oh, yes.
So what would be helpful to an author listening today from your perspective that maybe you don't hear often enough or would be helpful to a new author? How can we encourage an author today?
Yeah. So the first thing, everybody always hears the advice, write every day and you have to write so many words a day. I have a mentality for me. So I'm going to put this part out there because that's advice they hear a lot, but I want to put a different spin on it. Because for me, probably once a year I read On Writing by Stephen King. It inspires the crap out of me. However, he does say in there, write every day. He writes like 1,000 words a day. That's like a really common word count that you hear. But if you have a full-time job, you have kids, you have a family, you do all these other things, mentally you just don't feel like you can. And I know for me, it became defeatist because I would set that goal for myself. And instead of facing that computer and knowing I wouldn't hit 1,000 words, I just didn't do it. I didn't show up. So I think the most important thing is just show up and write something. Even if you stare at the blank page, you showed up. I mean, and that's kind of like the main thing, because what I did at that point is I'm like, you know what? I'm going to set my writing goal at 100 words a day. That's 2 paragraphs. And it's like, sometimes that's a lot. That can be a struggle. But other times I'm like, I'm exhausted from work, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I start writing. And more often than not, I almost hit 1,000 words every time I sat down. But because I wasn't setting that goal and holding myself to that expectation that if I don't do this, then I'm failing, I was able to reach that, and I wasn't afraid to approach the computer. And it's really a mind game, because from a lot of people, they might go, well, that's kind of silly. But there are a lot of people out there who may have that mindset that they're like, I would rather not face the failure. And so I'm just going to opt out today because I'm too tired. So that was a big thing for me, is just changing the narrative on common advice you hear. And so mine would be is when someone's saying write every day, just show up every day. Even if you write one sentence, it's a sentence more than you had the day before. And the point is that sitting in front of the computer builds the habit. Protect that time for yourself in the morning with coffee, after work, whatever it is. Just tell your family, your friends. If you live in a space by yourself, then turn off your phone and say, I'm just going to show up for, let me give myself 15, 20 minutes minimum and just see what happens. And that would be my biggest advice, because doing that really helped me to create a habit that turned into me writing consistently at least 400 words a day. There's been times I sat down and it was 3,000 and I was like, whoa, this was an awesome day. I feel awesome. And then other days I struggled to get 300 words on the page. But the point was I was there.
I had an author on the show a while back, and they used a thought from Ray Bradbury, the author, and he basically said something along the lines of write once a week, like a short story, 52 in a row. And the chances of you writing a bad story 52 times in a row are pretty slim.
Yep.
One of those stories, or more than one, are going to be actually really good.
Yeah.
So there's no way you're going to get 52 terrible stories in a row. The odds are against you.
Right.
So by simply writing that much, you might have 50 really bad ones and 2 good ones. But at least you showed up on a regular basis and kept writing, right? I like that
Exactly.
kind of mentality. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard it reinforced so many times where like a lot of big authors or writing teachers will say your first 100,000 words, they're probably going to be garbage. So sit down and write those first 100,000. And then after that, the real work goes.
Yeah.
So
Get them out of
get
the
them out
way.
of the way.
Yeah.
So,
And it's hard to balance it with your life too.
right.
If you are not a full-time writer and author, to carve out time with everything else going on, family and commitments and life in general, it's really hard to carve out that time. So if you're not intentional and you have it scheduled or something where you know this is my writing time,
Yeah.
something else is going to rob your calendar that week, and you're just not going to be like, you'll be weeks and you're like, oh, I haven't written anything.
Yep.
Right.
Every
So you
time.
gotta be right. You gotta think about it. So that's good.
Yeah.
What part of the week do you write? When do you find most creative for yourself?
I actually, so it used to be chaotic all over the place, but
Okay.
as part of me, like, no, I'm going to get myself on a schedule, is I actually find that I am the most productive first thing in the morning. So I'll wake up. So I'm now waking up earlier than I did previously. And I'll sit down, get a cup of coffee, a little oatmeal or something, and I will try to write for 30 minutes, and then I'll try to do a walk or some kind of exercise to get myself going, and then get ready for my normal work day. And then often I revisit it, but the nighttime is hit or miss, family, different things going on. But I find that for in the morning I can usually carve out 30 minutes to an hour for myself, and so that's what I do first thing in the morning. And I think why I'm so much more productive then, you wake up, you're fresh, but a lot of times I'm groggy in the morning, so I don't know how fresh I am. But the thing about it is that's the first thing I start to think about when I'm making coffee. I haven't had the opportunity to be distracted by everything else, by my phone, by something on Instagram, by some crazy headline news flash, anything. None of those things have happened yet. And so it just gives me that space with my story and what I want the characters to do and what they're doing in my head. And I can just sit there and mull over them, and sounds crazy, but let them have a little bit of a conversation. And then it's like, this is where I left off. Oh, and that's when I have my best flashes of inspiration. So it's like the perfect time for me to sit down and just bang it out instead of previously where it's like, oh, I got to get up, get ready for work. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should jot that down and get back to it. Kind of lose that creative momentum that I have first thing in the morning by doing that. So that for me, that's what works the best.
If you weren't an author and you've never written a book,
Yeah.
you've never done this before, and you never even went down this path, where would you be? Like, what does writing do for you, and how are you a different person by becoming an author?
Part of it makes me just feel whole as a person. There's a part of me that it's just because it's hard to think if I didn't have that creative itch, that need to write, what would I be like as a person? Because I don't know. I've always felt the need to do that, and in long lengths of time where I did not, something felt agitating, I guess, to me. Like I needed to. It helps me focus my thoughts. It helps me process different things that are going on in my life, in society, everyday, family, even in this, which we'll get there, but even in my short story collection that's coming out, one of the stories that are in there, I wrote that. It was long after the actual event, but I still wrote it probably 10 years ago, and it helped me process still that feeling of loss that I had from losing my grandparents. And so that one is actually completely derived from an experience I had. So it's just something that helps me process and deal. It's very therapeutic for me to write and navigate stories. And to me, it's a conversation with people that I'm putting out there. A lot of stories, you get, I like to write fantasy now and again, and you have a thriller and you're like, you're trying to have a conversation about murdering somebody, and it's like, no. But a lot of what's going on in those stories are, let's look at the dynamics of the characters. Something's going on with them interacting with other people, and it's a way to discuss it. And that's why I love fiction, is because a lot of conversation can be contentious, especially nowadays, when you just have it right out in the open. But people drop their guard down for fiction, and they're able to empathize with people by reading it and seeing something happening to people that they start to connect with because they're like, I'm just reading a story. I'm not having somebody in my face challenging me about a subject.
Yeah.
And so all of those different facets is what makes writing so important to me because it just helps me communicate and process and have a conversation with the world, whether it's about something I'm processing or something I'm going through or something that I see that it's like I just want people to think and
Okay.
consider. Yeah.
All right. So this becomes your platform. The stories become a method to translate your thoughts and your ideas into the world. But if there was like an underlying foundation to what you do and what you write about, is there like a common thread through all the things that you're trying to write?
No.
Okay, good.
Because my stories can be all over the place. And I,
Okay.
not wholly all over the place, but I don't write one specific genre. So generally, something's by a flash of inspiration. And so some stories might be unrelated to something dwelling on my mind more so that it's, oh, I saw this painting and it made me think of something. But then as the story developed, the characters, stories take a long time to write. So then there might be something in my world that I start incorporating into a character as a way for me to process it and go through like maybe figuring out something in my own life that I'm trying to communicate or something that I experienced by putting it into a character.
So let's talk about your collection of short stories. I'm curious about this because I don't always have authors on that write in this format, collecting short stories together like you're doing. What was the idea of doing it this way compared to maybe some of the other more, I guess, common ways that people would approach writing a novel? Why the short story route?
Yeah. So I've always wanted to write a novel, but it was something that always intimidated me. So to actually sit down and write something humongous was like, "Ooh, I don't know that I'm ready." So I've always written short stories for years and years and years. And so I had started on a novel, but I was like, I have no idea how long this is going to take me. So always writing short stories, and some of those ideas grew larger. And probably about a year ago, I looked back at all of these short stories that I had, and had maybe 25, 30 short stories just written. Some of them I was like, that doesn't need to see the light of day. And other ones I was like, I really enjoy these. I would really love to put them out into the world. The problem with them, as we already kind of discussed, my stories are maybe just by a burst of inspiration. There's not necessarily a common thread to them. So then it's looking at these and it's like, okay, I went through them and found these 14 stories that were my favorites, but they weren't really related in any way to each other. So I'm like, I don't really know how to put this into a collection that makes sense because it's not like each story had a connecting character or they were all like horror stories or something like that of the same genre. And so when I started looking at these stories, I started grouping them together. It's like, okay, these ones are kind of melancholic. These are horror. This has, that kind of element to it. And then I realized I had some other ones that were a little bit all over the place, but the endings were happier. They seemed more hopeful. It's like, oh, it's not something dark that happened to somebody. It's something good. And after seeing that I had this thread, I was like, I do have a thematic arc here. Like, and that's where the title came from, was Menagerie in the Dark, because it's these collection of characters and they're following this arc going from dusk to the darkness of night, which are going to be horror stories, to dawn, where it starts a more hopeful trajectory with the idea that no matter how dark things get, there's a brighter day that comes. Dawn always comes. And so that was the thematic arc that I established. And it was really just through looking at the stories that I had. These were my favorites. These were ones I really wanted to share with people. And I realized this is how I can do it for this to make sense and it works. It's not just, oh, I had to find a reason to do it just so I didn't have a disjointed mess that I put out there where everyone's like, these stories are everywhere. But they actually went together cohesively, which then ended up being a really exciting prospect to get this short story collection out into the world. And then, of course, that was a year-long process to actually get it edited and get it finished. But that's where the idea came from. So it wasn't from the get-go that I started out. I'm going to write this short story collection, and then I just went one after another. These, some of the stories are as old as 12 years old, and others are as young as 3 years old, but all of them were over the course of like 9 years of just randomly writing things that I ended up compiling.
Is there a cohesive sense of your voice as an author through all the different years that's represented in the stories, or do we kind of get a little sense of how you've grown as an author as well?
I definitely think there will be some of them where you can maybe see me as a younger author versus a more experienced writer, but I did work with my editor on them, so there were some of them that had extensive revision. One story it was just a scene essentially. I thought it was this awesome scene. It will kind of remind you of like a Tales from the Crypt style. I was like, oh, this scene's awesome, and I wrote it, and it was maybe like 1,800 words, and she told me throughout that there were a few stories like this. She's like, you write really great scenes. However, we kind of get to the end of the scene, it's the climax, and then she's like, well, then what happened? She's like, and that was a big learning curve for me, and I'm glad that I never tried to tackle a novel at that point, because it's like, oh, like I can write a scene, but I'm apparently not doing a full story arc, because just because the story is short doesn't mean you don't have to hit all 5 beats. Like, you still need your exposition, you still need action, climax, falling action, the resolution. It all has to be there. So, that story ended up expanding to be 21,000 words or 22,000 words. So it went from 1,800 words to 22,000 and became a whole new monster. So yes, you'll see like my voice may be maturing, but some of them have been looked at with new eyes by me, to where I really dug deep into them. And I'm like, this scene's cool, but there's so much more I want to tell, but it'll still be a short story. So, yeah, so that's what ended up happening with those.
When you collect a group of stories together in a book, how do you know who your ideal reader is if there's such variety across the stories? Do you have any idea of who you're writing to?
That's something to keep in mind. So you don't want to go, and I didn't want to go too far off base, too far to the left or right. In terms of just directions that we're veering, right? So are we like, whoa, you're really horror, and then you have romance over here. So it's nothing so expansive in terms of crossing genre. I wanted to make sure when I was collecting it that they were closely related enough, in the sense that the tone would make sense. But looking at my writing in general, I have a similar tone, like with my writing style and my voice. I don't, but that's kind of the same with a lot of writers. Like when you're reading Stephen King, his tone, it's darker fiction. I kind of have that vein where it kind of has that, it tends to be darker fiction. There might be some literary moments, but I tend to stay kind of in that horror, sci-fi, fantasy realm. So really overall, when I was thinking about my audience, I don't think I had any stories. I think there was one story originally. So this was supposed to be 15. And I think I excluded one because I was like, I just don't see it fitting, because overall I wanted this to fit into like a speculative fiction realm, because it wasn't quite horror. It wasn't quite sci-fi, but speculative fiction can encompass all of those, of just when you're reading it, you're going to get things that are asked, kind of posing the what if question. They're going to be a little darker, a little weirder. And so that was really the audience I was going for. And I think that's probably just who I write to in general.
Is there an age group then I'm thinking of the reader listening to this going, who can I send this book to? Who can I buy this book for? Is there kind of an age kind of range for this book?
Definitely not for children. Because there would be, profanity or, with it being horror, there,
Yeah.
murder,
Yeah.
etc. So I wouldn't do it for a young audience, but older teen and up into that, young adult, it would be fine for, and up would be a fine range for the book.
Yeah. That just kind of gives us some parameters as we're listening.
Yeah.
Going, I wonder if I can get this for my nephew Bob. Would he like this book? Oh, Bob is 7. Probably not for Bob, right?
No, avoid it for Bob.
There you go. Well, it's kind of nice because then they can kind of picture who this book could be great for.
Yeah.
What now that the book is done, what are you proud of? Like, go from an idea, a concept, writing these stories on their own,
Yep.
combining them into a book. At the end of the result of all this, what are you proud of the most when you look at this book?
That I'm very proud I was able to finish it, which that's always the exciting moment. But to look back and look through the whole process and realize that I created a piece of art and I was able to go back through my life experiences and look back at the last decade, and this has all of me in it from that time period and the growth that I went through, because several of the stories have some basis in something that was happening in my life, and some of them are completely fictional. But by looking back at that and being able to look through the stories, any kind of novel that somebody writes, it has their blood, sweat, and tears of actually writing it and banging their head trying to think, oh, how am I going to move this forward? But this collection has like a part of me, my emotional state, things that I, being able to read certain stories, I'm able to identify where I was in my life at that time when I wrote it, because I wrote it, and maybe readers won't. But for me, the proud moment is it's a story I'm proud of. And it's like, this is what I've always wanted to do with my life, is to be a writer. Yeah. And even though it doesn't feel like it up to this point, because a book is coming out now, all that time leading up to now, I was still working to get here. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like missed opportunity and missed time, because this is a story that maybe I wrote 10 years ago and it's in here, which means the last decade I was working toward this.
It's the finish line.
Yes.
Right. For a lot of things, and you kind of wrapping this up, which now leads to the next thing. But I asked you earlier, like, what the common thread was for all these different stories, and both you and I kind of talking through it, it's kind of hard to make a connection. But as I'm listening to you, I think the common thread in all of this for all these different stories is you.
Yeah.
You're the common thread.
Yeah.
Because they all came from you. So even if the stories don't like go together story-wise, story to story, you're that common thread.
Yeah.
So I think that's what ties all this together.
Yeah. I'm glad we talked that through. It's always good to have that light bulb moment after a conversation.
Right? Because if it wasn't for you, these stories wouldn't be here. So I think that might be their secret sauce.
Yeah. So, and without my life experience, a lot of these I wouldn't have gotten the ideas for, because some of them may have just been something that I saw, I witnessed. Maybe part of it happened to me and I turned it into something crazy in terms of a story. But it's like, if I didn't live that, it wouldn't exist.
In the moment, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah.
From those stories, is there a story you're excited for the reader to read for the first time? Like when somebody says to you, "Oh, I'm on chapter 3," and you're like, "Oh, I can't wait to get to chapter 5. You're gonna love chapter 5." Like, is there a story that's kind of in your mind right now that you can't wait for your readers to read for the first time?
Yes, and it's called the Grave Spotter. That one I'm very interested to see people's reactions to, even though I have many of them where I'm like, oh, I wonder what people think of this one. But the Grave Spotter, and that one just has, I'm not sure exactly what it is about the emotion that I have. I guess because it just gives me these creepy kind of, it's the one that I told you kind of had that Tales from the Crypt style. And right whenever I think about it, just because of that sensation that I get, and that's toward the beginning of the book where I get that vibe from, and then it continues from there. it's just nostalgic. It just makes me think of as that was a show that was popular that was on when I was a kid. So it just gives me
Yeah.
this nostalgia and this excitement for that, and just kind of that 90s horror kind of I guess sensation. So that's the one that I probably am really excited for people to tell me, oh, I just started this one, and I'm like, oh boy, all right, you got to tell me when you're done. So
Okay, so take us back in time then for that story specifically.
yeah,
When did you write that specific story and what sparked the idea to write that?
which is really weird because there wasn't there wasn't anything from my childhood that actually made me write that one. And I wrote that initial scene that started it before, I had expanded greatly about a year ago. But the initial scene that I wrote, that was back in 2014, I believe I wrote that.
Okay.
So it was all that time. So 10 years it sat without me touching it. And then
Uh-huh.
I made the story 11 or 12 times longer a year ago.
Yeah.
But and what had sparked that is two very close friends of mine. We have a writing we have a writing group, and still to this day we are all in different parts of our lives. One of them moved to Japan. I live probably about an hour from the other, so we still connect online. Probably almost every day, we're at least sending a meme to each other, right? To be like, "Oh, isn't this funny? Look at this." But whenever we have anything that we've written, we always send, we're the first, that's the first person we send it to and go, guys, what do you
Nice.
think?
Yeah.
But back then, we all worked at a Barnes and Noble together, and we would, the bookstore employees wishing to be writers. I know it's
Yeah,
for the
there you
cliche.
go.
And we would always get together about once a week and go over our writings together. Like, oh, we worked on this, and we would, come up with prompts for each other. And it was actually just, that one was based on a prompt, and I think there was a picture, and it was something with a grave. I can't remember the full clarity of the picture because I don't have it anymore, but there was a grave site, and that's what for some reason sparked for me to go down this whole road, was just seeing a like sketch of a graveyard with a grave site, and from there it turned into everything that it turned into, which is, a casket opening with a portal that takes this guy to seeing like his wife's death. And because the story starts out that way, so I'm not ruining it for anybody. And so it went from there, and my mind just went off on it, and fingers flying, wrote that 1,800 words in a 1 day sitting, because it was just like, it just sparked it. Coming back and revising it, that was all right. I got to think about the emotions of what's going on here and where I want it to go. So that took a little bit longer. But once I got myself back in the mindset and looked at the story and let myself feel it again, I was able to take myself right back to that burst of energy and excitement of, well, what is going to happen to him? And that's how the expansion happened. But the original writing was back, I believe it was 2014. Yeah.
All right, so like I'm on your website while we're chatting and enjoying your website, by the way. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Talk a little bit about, I'm seeing Lazarus. What is Lazarus? Let's talk about this too. Come on, a little bit about this.
So that is a novella that I published. So that is my first thing that I published, and that was back in 2023. And so that one is, again, that was a burst of inspiration by something that I just saw that was happening out in the world. So essentially what's happening in that story is there's a company, and they take plasma from younger people and give it to older people to make them younger. And of course, that sounds very science fiction-y, because it is, and a supernatural element comes into it as this story goes on. But what inspired this was a CBS news article that I read, and I wrote that story when the pandemic started. I believe I remember distinctly being stuck in our apartment in West Loop in Chicago, and it's like, all right, well, it's April. I can't go outside. For some reason, people are buying all the toilet paper and paper towels for no apparent reason because this isn't a disease that makes you do that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm inside and I saw an article about a company that lost, I don't know if they had FDA approval or I would have to revisit the article, but they either had FDA approval or it was either taken away from them or it was denied them. And it was a company that was doing exactly that. Younger people can come in and donate their plasma, and it was treated like a luxury cosmetic item
Oh,
by like wealthy older people, and they were having it injected into them thinking, oh, this makes me younger. And I think the company might have been called Ambrosia or something. I don't know. It was something like that. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I was like, let's expand on this. And I started writing the story. But the donors in Lazarus are not younger people that are donating their blood. The company is portraying it as that happening, but it's actually children that are being abducted.
oh no,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah. And so they're being forcibly taken, and it's those in society that are generally forgotten about, homeless and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it has a good ending. It sounds doom and gloom in the beginning, but the ending is rewarding in terms of it not being awful considering the way the
Okay.
premise starts.
Okay.
But that is the start of it is they are taking plasma from these young children and they're using it for people and treating it like it's this next beauty serum that will cure all diseases, a cure all for everything. And it is helping
Yeah.
people, but it's also causing problems. And the
Okay.
company's lying about where they're sourcing it. So that's what that story is about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got two books to start with from you, and you're going to continue writing, which we're going to get to in a second. But
Yeah.
for you as an author, like, do you see yourself just continuing down this path? Is this going to be something you're going to be doing long term and you're going to be living your next chapter? Name of my show inserted here. Is that kind of
Yes.
where you want to go with this? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Like this is my dream. It always has been is to um, be able to be an author and make a full-time living off of it. And it's a lot of work. But one day I'll get there. It's just
Okay.
persistence and keep working at it and putting those books out. So, and those stories.
I have a question for you that's designed to feature the people closest to you
Mhm.
in your family, in your life, in your circle who cheer you on. But who are those people for you? What do they mean to you as an author as you chase this dream and you're actively doing it, so it's working?
Yeah.
What the people closest to you, what do they mean to you as you chase this path as an author?
Well, they mean everything. that's that's for sure. And they they're always there cheering me on, and that is the important thing is having that support and having them be able to understand that yes, I love doing family theme things, but sometimes I need to shut myself away because
Yeah.
this is the only way for me to chase my dream. And it's a hard balancing act because I am a dad. And
Yeah.
my daughter's 12 and she's probably my biggest cheerleader.
Nice.
I don't know. My mom's pretty close too, but she every time I have a book coming out, tell me about it, Dad. Can I read it? Oh, and she
Oh,
just wants to
good.
talk about it. She tells her friends about it. She's like, oh, my dad has a new book coming out. And then it's, oh, Dad, do you want to do this? And it's like, and so then, that kind of pulls on the heartstrings of it's like, oh, yeah, I want to do this, but I need to work on this writing thing because once I can do that full time,
Yeah.
it's that whole struggle with time. If I could do that full time, then I don't have to do it at night. But for me to get there, let's just talk about and arrange. And that's the important thing is just communicating with my husband and my daughter of, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to, you know, let's plan some family time, but I do need this time. And that's the biggest thing is just communicating with them of this is something I need to do and we'll arrange all sorts of things to do together and have family time, even just like, oh, we're going to watch a TV later and have dinner. Can you
Yeah.
please make dinner? Just let me do this from this time to this time. then I'll come down and help with this, and
Yeah.
this is the time we'll do that, and just talking it through so that we all try to arrange, because everybody, especially like she's 12, she's getting older, she has her time where she's like, I want to talk to my friends, I'm going to FaceTime, I'm going to go outside and do that, and it's like, okay, well, let's arrange that so that you're doing that while I need to write, and then I can actually see you and not feel like I'm missing out on everything, when because I have to shut myself away to write. It can be isolating, but it can also be something that you could do in a community. So I don't always have to do that. Noise canceling headphones do wonders these days. So, sometimes they're watching a movie and I'm like, I don't want to watch that movie, but I want to sit with you guys. So just put on the noise canceling headphones and I'm good.
And just be with you.
Yep.
And for your people that you write with, your little group that you have,
yeah,
what does it mean to have their support as an author as well?
That's an incredible thing to have as an author. And you'll hear a lot of authors talk about, the value of writing groups, or those people that you can go to be your first readers, and to have them there, especially, you don't have to have a college degree in English to be a writer. I think a lot of times people get caught up in the education component, and it's like you can teach yourself how to do anything just by working at it. And I remember both of them had gone and have English degrees. So I always felt very self-conscious with my writings, even though they were my friends. But I felt self-conscious about them because it's like, ooh, well, they know how to edit better than I do. And, maybe the grammatical, like the very specific college level grammatical and, theories behind things. And it's like, when it all comes down to it, that doesn't matter. And it didn't matter to them. And it was just me internally. But by having them also be dedicated writers and really focused on that, it was amazing to have two people that I could go to that could look at my things critically, but because they're close friends, which can be a problem for a lot of people. Sometimes close friends and family, everything they tell you do is wonderful. Yeah, so right. Definitely don't want to get caught in that, because then you're like, oh, I'm actually putting something that's terrible out there and I don't know because everyone's telling me it's wonderful. With them, we were all learned how to look at each other's work and give that feedback in the constructive way that is necessary to move it forward. And through all these years, it made it so that when I went to them, I'm like, I know that I'm going to get solid feedback, not just how is it as a writer, what is structurally wrong, what are questions you have, what plot holes did you see? And yes, I have an editor for that, but editors are expensive. So you try to consolidate when you send stuff to them. So there's sometimes something, a question the editor might pose, or even before that, it's like, if my group can read it and identify things that an editor might, and I can fix it and already think that through, then when I send for structural editing, the editor might go, hey, your structural stuff is good. Want me to go into line editing? Perfect, because that just is less rounds of editing I have to go through, right? So that has meant so much to me, to have people that I can trust to send that to, that will actually look at it with that critical eye and give me the feedback that has helped me grow over the last 12, 15 years. I mean, looking back at stuff I wrote 15 years ago, it's some of it I'm like, oh gosh, that's embarrassing. But then other things, now I read some stuff and sometimes I read it and have to remember I wrote it, and I was like, wow, sometimes I can actually write something that sounds pretty good. I could turn a phrase every once in a while. So that feels nice, So
nice.
Yeah. So having just that support group to help me get there is means the world.
And as you listen to this, as you hear Chris talking, you know who you are. So thank you for being in Chris's corner and giving him that support. I know he means a lot to him and his journey. So as you listen to this, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Chris wouldn't be where he is at this point without you. So you made it easier for him in the process. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I have a question to wrap up, Chris, at the end. But before I do that, take us to your website where we can follow your journey. More stuff to come in the future from you. But where should we go? Where should we send our listeners and our readers?
Yes. So to chriskauzlarich.com. So it's just my first and last name. I will spell it out because my last name is not easy. So it's Chris, so Chris, and then Kauzlarich. That's Kauz as in zebra, LARICH.com. And I also am on Substack. Same name, just search under Chris Kauzlarich and you can find me there. That's a new edition. So there will be new articles and things coming out there as I moved my newsletter to there because it just seems easier to navigate than using MailChimp for me. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's an interesting place. I just signed up there as well from a podcasting perspective. So
Oh, awesome.
I'll come over and follow your journey. That'd be great. I can work with you there.
Yeah, I'm going to look for you on there too.
Good.
I've only been on
living
3
the next
days.
Chapter,
So
3 days? Oh, you're an expert then. You've been on, so great. So yeah, living the next chapter, I have to ask as we leave the door, Chris, my audience wants to know, like, what's coming down the road for you. We want to celebrate, obviously, the launch of your books and all the great stuff. But we do want to know that you're working on new projects. Can you give us a little insight on maybe what we can anticipate and maybe a little bit of a timeline from the best perspective on what's coming down the road for us as readers?
Yes. So I have several ideas that I've outlined, like very loosely outlined, but I am actively writing a thriller right now. The working title for it is called In This Town. And I just started revising it. So working on my second draft, going through structural revisions. I just got my notes back from my editor like 4 or 5 days ago. So freshly digging into it. It's 95,000 word book. So that's somewhere close to 300 pages in terms of like novel terms. So a lot to dig in there, but really great feedback, really great questions and just small threads that my editor pointed out to wrap up. So I'm really excited to dig into those and expand on those more. I'm hoping to finish revisions on this particular draft by the end of summer, but usually it goes back and forth a few times. Like Menagerie in the Dark, the short story collection. I mean, that was five drafts before that was done. So I'm thinking my goal is to have all drafts and getting it ready to start prepping it to go out into the world, whether it's querying agents or, publishing it through my imprint by next summer. That's the goal. So very excited about that. So
that's exciting. And I'm sure the audience is eagerly awaiting the next book. So my challenge for everyone listening, as you buy Chris's books, plural, and the third one coming out soon, that you leave a great review. I know Chris would love to hear your thoughts about the book. It also helps other people who see your words about Chris's writings and encourages them to purchase it as well. So that's our gift back to authors, is to leave that great review. So Chris, again, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you also for listening to the show. Like, again, I feel like I need to give you a hug or something, or some kind of prize. I need to find a prize. But
being on here was a prize enough. So that's good. Just have me back when the other book comes out, and that's my prize.
Now you get to listen to your own episode, which is going to be interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. Congratulations to you, your husband, your daughter, all the great things going on in your life. And
thank you, Dave.
To have time with me on the show, I'm just proud to have you here. So
yes, thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Excellent. Everybody, all the information is always in the show notes. Chris has heard this before because he's listened to the show. Go to the show notes and grab a link to Chris's website and go check him out. Go and sign up for his Substack. 3 days in, he's an expert. Sign up, follow his journey. I'm sure he's got a lot of great things in store in the future for you there. Chris, again, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.